Hello, seventh graders, and welcome to our final unit. Whoop, whoop. Our unit is all on probability. So again, this is going to be reflecting on things that you should have learned here in sixth grade. And we're going to tail on and add on other things that are a little bit new this year. So our I cans for today are I can understand the concept of probability and the relationship between probability and likelihood, and I can find probability of events. Skipping our warm-up. So our question is, how can you describe the likelihood of an event? Okay, so how likely is something going to be to happen? So we're actually going to look at a scale on how we can decide if it's likely, most likely, unlikely, depending on the measurements they give us. So here is this little scale that I was telling you about. So it says the probability of an event is a number that measures the likelihood that the event will occur. Probabilities are between 0 and 1, including 0 and 1. The diagram related likelihoods above the diagram and the probability below the diagram. So basically your probabilities are either going to be in a fraction form, a decimal form, or a percent form. And we did a lot of talking about changing from one to another when we were in one of our units here. I think it was unit 7. Okay, we talked about how to transform from one to another. So the biggest thing is that all your probabilities are going to be between 0 and 1. Because anytime you have a fraction, it's between 0 and 1 if it's a true fraction, unless it's an improper fraction or a mixed number. Decimal, we only want things between 0 and 1, and percentage is the same way. So here's our scale. If I have anything with zeros, 0, fraction, 0 decimal, 0%, it means it's impossible. It's never going to happen, okay? An unlikely situation would be maybe 1/4, 0.25, or 25%. Something that's going to be equally likely to happen or equally not likely to happen or to not happen is going to be 1/2, 0.5, or that 50%. Okay. Something that's likely, I would say, here you've got 3/4, 0.75, or 75%. It's likely it's going to happen. And if you get a certain, it's going to be 1, okay, because this is a fraction, 1, this is also a decimal, or 100% of the time. Now, not always are they going to fall right into these categories, so we're going to have to kind of think, okay, maybe it's like 65%. So what would you kind of say in there? So let's go ahead and look at some examples and decide how we can explain these. So it says there's an 80% chance of a thunderstorm tomorrow. Describe the likelihood. So here's our direction. Describe the likelihood of the event. So how likely is that to happen? Now, I love to check the weather. Mostly because I dress very accordingly to the weather. If it's a really cold day, you're more than likely going to see me in a very bundled up sweater. If it's warm, I'll probably be wearing a t-shirt, maybe some sandals if it's really warm. So I always check the weather, and this is something you will see a lot of times when they talk about chances of snow or even chances of rain. So this is an 80% chance. So if I look at my likelihood chart here, okay, I would say it falls in between the likely and the certain. But I have to tell you that it can't be certain unless it's actually 100%, okay? So because it's a little bit above this and it passes the likely, I'm just going to say that it is likely, okay? So it's likely that it's going to happen. But sometimes, there's that 20% chance and maybe it won't happen. Especially here in Minnesota, they I don't know if Mr. Bo has told you this, but we're like basically in the middle of the continent, middle of North America. And so sometimes it's really hard to predict our weather patterns because we're right in the middle and we have a lot of different crosswinds that can affect our weather. And so it's kind of hard for us to make sure that this is always going to, 80% is a likely situation. But I would say for the most part, likely. All right. All right, so this is a 1/2, sorry. Kind of jumbled up over here. But I want you to go ahead and try these ones on your own, okay? So just describe the likelihood of the event. given its probability. So this is, sorry, this is for this part. So this 1/2 is for this first one. This second one has 100% chance. So go ahead, pause it, tell me how likely it is. It's going to use this chart. And I just want the top part. Use your English words. Tell me, is it impossible, unlikely, equally likely, likely, or certain? All right, go ahead and pause, write your 2 answers down. When you come back, we'll go through the answers. Alrighty, welcome on back. So your first one, since the probability is 1/2, that's going to fall into the equally likely and equally unlikely. So that should be your answer. Number 2, you've got 100% chance, so that is certain that the temperature is going to be less than 120 degrees. I don't know where they're measuring, but that's like Arizona, Nevada weather. Like that's hot. All right. So another part of this lesson then is actually finding the probability of an event, because right now we're just describing if it's likely or unlikely. So to find the probability of an event, when all possible outcomes are equally likely, the probability of an event is the ratio. Remember, we've talked about ratios. Ratios are going to be in the form of a fraction, one out of the other, or sometimes you can use that dot to dot, so like 1 to 2, 1/2. This event is the ratio of numbers of favorable outcomes to the number of possible outcomes. The probability of an event is written as P event. Okay. Sometimes we just leave it as P as well, but this is going to be important, so I would circle this on your notes, maybe put a little star by it. Okay. So the top part is going to be the number of favorable events. So for an example, maybe you have like a bag full of jelly beans, okay? And you want to see how many you can pull out that are red. So anytime you pull out a red, that's going to be part of this favorable outcome. And then the number of possible outcomes, that's going to be how many jelly beans did you pull out of the bag. Okay, maybe you pulled out 10, and out of the 10, there was only 2 that were red, so you'd have 2 out of 10. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at an example. All right, so this one says you roll a number cube. Okay, a number cube. This is a die or a dice. What is the probability of rolling an odd number? Well, if you have a traditional number cube or a dice, you know that we have numbers 1 through 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what they want to know is what is the probability of rolling an odd number. Let me get a different color here. Doesn't like when I'm over here. So then we got to go ahead and take a look at the odd numbers. Well, how many odd number possibilities are there? Well, 1 is odd. Sometimes people don't count 1 as odd, but for this one, let's count 1 as odd. 3 and 5 are odd. So I have a total of 3 favorable outcomes, so that's going to be the top of my ratio. And then I need to have it out of the bottom, or the bottom part's going to be the possible ratios. Well, there's 6 numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And with probabilities, then we always want to try and simplify this. So I wouldn't leave this as 3, 6. I would then change this to 1/2. So if you're thinking about your likelihood, this would be equally likely, and unlikely. Equally likely and equally unlikely. Okay. Roll into the next one. All right, example 3. So it says the probability that you randomly draw a short straw from a group of 40 straws is 3/20, sorry. How many are short straws? So I'm going around, I have 40 straws in my hand, and they want to know how many straws are actually short when the probability is 3/20. Now remember when I told you that in probability we always simplify it, okay? So in this simplified form, what I can do is I can use our ratios and we can set up a proportional relationship, okay? So remember when we set up proportions, we're setting two ratios equal to each other. So I'm going to put the 3/20 on this side. In this case, they set it up in the same way. The 3 is the favorable outcome, so that's how many short straws. The bottom is the total amount of outcomes. So in this case, maybe they had 20 and there's 3 that are short. So if I wanted to know out of 40, the 40 goes on the bottom, the top is my x. So then I can use my cross multiplication, or if you notice the pattern, we've talked about those patterns of either division or multiplication. So in this case, actually, I noticed that from 20 to 40, it's a multiple of 2. So I think it's actually going to be easier to just multiply it by 2. So the top part, my x then, would be 3 times 2, which is going to give me a 6. So my answer choice would be B. So out of a total of 40 straws, 6 of them are then going to be the short straws. Okay, and you can use these ratios to help you determine how many are going to be in 120 straws, how many are going to be in 80 straws. Okay, 80 straws, I would just double this because 40 times 2 is 80, so that would be, what, 12? Okay, so you could keep going and figuring out how much, if this proportion stays the same or this probability stays the same. Right? So now you got a few here on your own. Okay, so you're going back into example 2. So you're thinking about that dice. And number 5 here is talking about the straws. So I want you to go ahead, pause the video, and come up with the probability. Remember, it's always favorable outcomes out of the total amount of outcomes there are. All right, pause your video. When you get back, we will go through the answers. Alrighty, welcome back. So in problem number 3, you're thinking about a dice. You want to know what's the probability of rolling a number greater than 2. So numbers that are greater than 2 are 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's a total of 4. You have a total of 6 outcomes. Remember, you want to simplify it. Sorry, so you would get 2 out of 3. All right. In example 2, again, we're talking about that normal dice. Just wanted to make sure. Probability of rolling a 7, well, there's no 7 on a normal dice. It's 1 through 6, so that's a probability of 0 out of 6, or 0. And number 5, then, what is the probability that you randomly draw a short straw from a group of 75 straws is 1 out of 15. So again, I set up a proportion, 1 out of 15, set it equal, my 75's on the bottom because that's the total amount of straws. You can use cross multiplication or your butterfly, but I noticed that I could just multiply by 6. And so 1 times 6 gives me 6. So there's a total of 6 short straws when I have 75 straws. Oh, we're not doing our closures, so don't worry about that. Didn't realize that was still there. And your homework then, again, don't worry about the normal format of this, but your homework for today then is going to be that 15.2 on Big Ideas Math. Okay, this assignment will be due here on this Sunday. I want to make sure I got the right date, so I'm just looking at my calendar. It's going to be Sunday the 24th. So what is that? 5/24. Make sure to get it done. If you have any questions, as always, reach out to me. Hey, code word for this one. Let's make it straws. Yeah. Let me know you got questions. We can always set up a Zoom meeting, you and me, if you need help on anything specifically. Until then, I will catch you in the next part. Have a good day. Bye.